Ready for a deep dive into socialization?
I'm game.
We're looking at notes from Ron W Rathbun. He dives into how to navigate the social world, but with more harmony.
Interesting. So is this like a guide to better conversations or something?
It's deeper than that.
Hmm.
His ideas are super relevant, even more so today, I think. See, he's not saying we should, ditch society altogether.
Oh, good, because I was worried this was going to be a Become a Hermit episode.
Haha, no. It's about shifting how we approach interactions. Instead of completely separating ourselves, he suggests detaching.
Detachment. Isn't that just a fancy word for isolating yourself?
That's what I thought too at first. But it's not about physically removing yourself from social situations.
Okay, so what does it actually look like then?
Think of it this way. You're at a party, right? Loud music, tons of people, maybe even some drama going down.
Yeah, I can picture it.
So detachment is about being present in that environment, but not getting swept up in the emotional chaos.
So you're observing.
Right, but you're not letting the energy of the situation control your own inner state.
So like being the eye of the storm.
Exactly. You're aware of everything happening around you, but you're maintaining your own sense of calm.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But how do you actually achieve this detached state? Like, are there specific techniques?
Yes, he calls it Kelee meditation. That's where it gets even more interesting. Rathbun talks about 3 main ways people operate in the world: through their ego, their intellect, and what he calls mind.
Almost like we've got these different operating systems running at the same time.
Yeah, and they can definitely clash.
That makes a lot of sense. I can see how those 3 things could easily be in conflict.
So let's break them down. Someone driven by their ego might be super focused on their own needs, even at the expense of others.
Oh yeah, the type who always has to be right.
Yep. Quick to react, get defensive, maybe even try to dominate conversations. Now picture someone operating from their intellect. They value logic, reason.
Okay, that sounds kind of familiar.
They love to analyze, debate, and dissect ideas, but you can get stuck in your head and miss the bigger picture.
I could see that happening. All right, so what about the mind?
That's where Rathbun gets really interesting. He describes it as a deeper understanding, free from judgment and comparison.
Can you give an example? Like, what does it feel like to operate from that mind space?
Imagine you're with a close friend who just gets you. They don't judge, they don't try to fix you.
Yeah, I get it. They just understand.
Exactly. That's the kind of understanding he's talking about. Seeing things clearly without the filter of your own opinions. And to get to this state, Rathbun suggests Kelee meditation.
Kelee
He
meditation.
doesn't go into super detail, but it's like a practice to help access this detached mind state.
So through Kelee meditation, you can quiet the ego and intellect and tap into this deeper awareness.
That's the idea. And by learning to operate from that place, you're better equipped to handle tricky social situations.
Interesting. So even when things get heated, you can stay calm and detached.
That's what Rathbun suggests, yeah. And he doesn't just apply this concept to individuals, he connects it to the evolution of humanity as a whole.
Wow, that's a big leap.
He argues that right now we're struggling to distinguish harmony from disharmony, like as a species.
Yeah, you just have to look around the world to see that's true.
So much division, conflict, negativity, it's like we've forgotten what real harmony looks like.
Exactly. And Rathbun's saying until we access this mind space, we're stuck in a cycle of opinions and judgments.
Which just perpetuates the disharmony. So the big question is, how do we break free?
Right. How do we even begin to shift our perspective?
Well, Rathbun emphasizes this. The mind just understands the way it is. Understanding is free from comparison.
So when you operate from your mind, you're not trying to force your own interpretations on the situation.
You're simply observing, understanding, and accepting what is. Sounds simple, right?
In theory, maybe. But I can imagine it's a lot harder to actually put into practice.
Oh, absolutely. It takes effort to quiet that inner voice of judgment.
Yeah, that constant comparison, it can be tough to shut it off.
And one of the biggest challenges, Rathbun says, is communicating with those who are still operating from their ego or intellect.
Oh, I can see that being a nightmare. Like trying to reason with someone who's completely emotionally charged.
It's like talking to a brick wall.
Exactly. So what's the solution? How do you deal with those situations?
Instead of meeting them on their level, Rathbun says, communicate from a place of understanding. It can actually help them shift.
Shift? Like how?
It can help them move from just thinking or reacting into a feeling process.
So it's not about winning the argument or proving them wrong.
Right. It's about creating space for them to maybe, see things differently.
Like holding up a mirror, reflecting back something more harmonious, That's a beautiful image.
Rathbun acknowledges it's not easy. He points out those who practice Kelee meditation are less affected by egos and intellects.
So they've cultivated this inner peace that helps them navigate these challenges more gracefully.
It makes you think, right? All those times you got sucked into conflicts, felt drained by people and their ego or intellect.
Yeah, if I'd been operating from that mind place, maybe those interactions would have been totally different.
We've all been there. But imagine approaching those situations with detachment.
Understanding the other person is just operating from a limited perspective.
You wouldn't take it personally, and you might even help them shift to a more harmonious way of being.
That's a powerful idea. But so far, we've mainly talked about individual interactions. How does this apply to, like, larger social systems?
That's a great question. Rathbun does mention the common good.
Yeah, he does. And that's where his ideas start to connect to the bigger picture. He suggests the intellectual world, at its best, is meant to promote the common good of humanity.
I'm curious to hear more about what Rathbun has to say on that topic.
He really emphasizes supporting those less fortunate and creating a society where everyone is empowered to evolve, like to their highest potential.
Sounds great in theory, but how do we actually put that into practice? There are so many complex social problems, it's hard to know where to even begin.
Rathbun specifically talks about helping people become self-sufficient. We should focus on empowering individuals.
So it's about creating a society where everyone has the tools to thrive, not just survive.
Exactly. Imagine a community where everyone has access to education, healthcare, and meaningful work too. A society where people feel supported, encouraged to develop their talents, and contribute, their unique gifts. That's the kind of world Rathbun envisions.
It's a beautiful vision, but it also feels, a bit idealistic. When you look at all the disharmony in the world, it's hard to be optimistic.
He addresses that. He acknowledges the disharmony is real, and it can feel overwhelming at times. But he offers this advice: never allow the disharmony in the world to inundate your mind, or it will control your harmony.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. So he's not saying we should ignore the problems, but we need to find a way to keep our inner peace amidst all the chaos.
Exactly. It's about recognizing we have a choice. We can let the negativity drag us down, or we can choose to cultivate a sense of peace and understanding.
It sounds like a practice, something you have to actively work on. Are there any specific practices Rathbun suggests to cultivate inner harmony?
He says if we learn to quiet our mind, he calls this method Kelee meditation, and he does introduce another concept. It's key to understanding his approach, the difference between beliefs and knowing. He says a belief is an understanding you don't know.
Okay, break that down for me. What's the difference between believing something and actually knowing it?
Think of it this way. Beliefs are often based on things we've been told but haven't experienced directly. They're like mental constructs that we've adopted. How about really questioning them?
Like hand-me-down ideas, ones we haven't fully integrated into our own understanding of the world?
Exactly. Knowing comes from direct experience. It's about going beyond those preconceived notions.
So if we're operating from a place of belief, we're kind of limiting our experience. We're not seeing clearly.
That's the idea. Rathbun suggests socialization itself is often based on beliefs about how things should be, rather than how they actually are. And until we access that mind space, we tend to default to our past conditioning, letting other people's thoughts and expectations shape our reality.
It makes you realize how much our perception is influenced by, outside forces.
Yes, and Rathbun specifically calls out the ego and intellect as potential sources of disharmony. Remember, he described the ego as driven by that need for self-preservation.
And the intellect, while capable of great things, can get stuck in comparison and fear.
Exactly. So how do we detach from those negative aspects of ego and intellect?
That's the question, isn't it?
You're right, and Rathbun doesn't shy away from that. He emphasizes the importance of detaching from those negative emotions. He uses the example of a sudden change in brain function, which can trigger fear and panic because our sense of reality is disrupted.
That makes me think about people who experience trauma or anxiety. They often get stuck in those fight or flight responses, like their minds and bodies are constantly on high alert.
Exactly. He suggests we can detach from those patterns and find a deeper sense of peace, like rewiring our responses, training our minds to operate differently.
So it's not just about understanding intellectually, it's about shifting our entire way of being in the world.
Precisely, and that's where Rathbun gets really practical. He points out the only problems we have is when we open to people in socialization. Now, he's not advocating for isolation, but he is suggesting we need to be more discerning. in our interactions.
It's about recognizing that not everyone is operating from a place of harmony, and we need to protect our own energy.
Yes. He even says the more familiar you are with who you are, the more you don't want to be familiar with people who don't know who they are. He's not advocating for judgment or separation, but for healthy boundaries.
So how do we balance that? The need for self-preservation with the desire to connect and contribute to the common good.
Exploring how to create harmonious spaces for ourselves, both internally and externally, and how to live from a place of learning and growth, even amidst all the disharmony.
We've been through a lot, detaching from social interactions, the difference between belief and knowing. So how do we actually use these ideas?
One thing Rathbun stresses is we got to actively cultivate harmony in our lives.
It's not just going to, poof, happen on its own.
Nope. He reminds us, disharmony always forces your attention, harmonies does not.
That's so true, but gotta make an effort for peace.
Right. Shift focus from what's wrong to what's right. Don't dwell on negativity, but find the good stuff.
Focus on what brings joy, peace. But how when the world's so full of bad news?
It is a practice. Starts with noticing the harmonious spaces we already have.
Like our home environment, making it nurturing, supportive place.
Exactly. Or a spot in nature, a park, whatever feels peaceful for you.
Creating oases of harmony inside and out.
Yes. And it's not just for ourselves. It's about contributing to a more harmonious world, too.
We talked about communicating from understanding, even with people stuck in ego or intellect.
That's a huge part of it. Even small kindnesses have a ripple effect. A smile, a kind word.
Spreading harmony through our actions.
Like we're all connected, and our choices matter. To wrap up, Rathbun says, real life isn't looping through your past. Real life is experiencing life for the first time.
I love that. Let go of the past. Embrace the now.
If this resonated, check out Kelee meditation. See how it can help you find more harmony. It's a journey, and every step counts.
Thanks for joining us. Keep exploring, keep learning, keep seeking that harmony in all you do.